Bum, 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum, 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 bum. We're coming up to the 2 year anniversary of when I first decided to implement some quiet quitting strategies at work, and I'd like to talk about some catalysts that made me even think about quiet quitting because I didn't always like the concept when I first heard it. But some things that happened made me appreciate and rethink my thoughts on quiet quitting. First of all, I really don't like calling it quiet quitting. I prefer to call it more like a negotiation or a strategic working, if you will. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, one of my biggest beefs about every workplace that I've been at, including here at Maricopa College, is we're a little bit better here, but my biggest beef is that people get set in their ways in life. And if your lifestyle differs, a lot of times, even if you're asking for equivalent accommodations, right? So, for example, I work with a lot of colleagues who are in committed relationships and or married and or have kids. Now, my colleagues might want to spend time with their significant others, spend time with their kids. Meanwhile, I might want to go out and network with people. It doesn't get treated equally, right? And so yeah, that's my biggest beef. The other things that I quiet quit over affect other people as well. So I can't really say, uh, uh, right? So my biggest beef is that I get treated differently because of differences in lifestyle. But there are a few other things that are more systemic that affect everybody, and I wish we would address in our work culture. One thing that I noticed at my last job at a tutoring center was how much time gets committed to work, right? And I'm not just saying, if you work 9 to 5, you probably spend a lot more than 9 to 5, either preparing to go to work, unwinding from work, the commutes, the constraints. What do I mean by that? Well, I was working at a tutoring center, but I was also doing a lot of art projects. And I found that if I had a shift that began, let's say it's a Friday afternoon, the tutoring begins at 1 o'clock. I found that my time was already very constrained by the time it got to 11:30. I couldn't just start an art casting project, right? Because the furnace had to be turned off, it had to cool down before I could leave the area, and not to mention the commuting there and all that. And so it's just, I found that the amount of time that gets committed to work is a lot more than people often will admit, right? After you get off of work, there's a lot of unwinding that has to happen, and so especially if you're like me, I'm single. People give me the wonkiest shifts. They think that I'm available Saturday. They think that I'm available to do a 2 hour shift. And so you get a 2 hour shift, you might have to commit 5 hours when it's all said and done, right? The amount that the impact it has on your life is a lot more than the number of hours that you were working. And so it made me really rethink: do I really want to give so much out of my 2 hours that I'm there? Or, sometimes if I'm going to be late, so be it, right? At least I'm not pigeonholing my activities before the session, right? Now, getting back to the time constraints, because of my differences in lifestyle, I often got shifts that other people found undesirable for some reason, right? So last year, 2023, Taylor Swift was performing in, I believe, Flagstaff, Arizona. I was working at the tutoring center, and a lot of my students went out to go see Taylor Swift, obviously. I don't think any of my colleagues went to see Taylor Swift. They're a different generation. And but because the hours were so sparse, they my colleagues took off, right? They decided that would be a good time to go on some other vacation, right? Maybe not to go see Taylor Swift, but go see their family at least, spend time with their kids. I had one colleague who was in college. She might have spent time with her parents, right? Reasonable things to do, right? And yes, I am available that week, right? I don't get along with my parents, so I wasn't going home. I'm not going to go see Taylor Swift, obviously. Yes, I am available. I just wish it would reciprocate the other way around. Right? Other times when I'd like to be out there, right? Anyway, so I stayed behind. I distinctly remember getting 6 hours of work. Now remember, 6 hours of work often mean 20 hours of that I'm not committing to the job, right? Now it was really frustrating because like I said, I still have to commit all those hours. I can't go. The opportunity cost of getting those 6 hours of work, right, is a whole nother. It's well, it's similar to the opportunity cost of other weeks where I might have 30 hours, except I only get paid for 6 hours, right? Very frustrating. It made me wonder, why do we pay people by the hour? Right? Why do we have to count how many hours? It's really your commitment and what the students get out of you, right? That really matter, right? Anyways, unfortunate, I made a very unfortunate mistake. I had just set up direct deposit a couple weeks before that week when Taylor Swift was in. I so much wish I didn't because I had gotten a direct deposit of like $85, $86, something like that. And I was thinking, gee, I wish they had given me a check. I so badly wanted to go up to the boss's office and just rip up the check in front of his eyes. And like, what is this? What is this? I'm here for students who actually want to study during this difficult week, and you're going to pay me $86 for that? I so badly wish I could have done that. Burn the check in front of his, rip it up or burn it in front of his eyes, right? Anyway, or better yet, roll some marijuana with the check and smoke it in front of him, right? Uh, Also, speaking of helping the students get what they want, I had a time when my boss was upset at me because of what had happened was I had a lot of stuff going on in my mind. And during the tutoring session, I made the mistake of checking some text messages that I was getting, and my boss was really upset about that. And so after he had pointed that out, I went up to the student to apologize to him. I got a lot going on. There's been an emergency in my life. I apologize for that. And my student said to me, and the boss actually heard it. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Don't worry about it. Thanks for helping me with my physics exam or whatever it was. And I'm thinking to myself, your my boss is complaining about something the student didn't even notice. And what happened to the customer is always right. Actually, the reason that I was checking those texts was because I was so upset at my work there. I was looking for another job. I obviously didn't tell my boss that part of the equation. I told him I had a little bit of a life emergency. I apologized. And the student didn't even notice that. Also, last month when I was on vacation, I discovered that I was sleeping so well. Now, here's the funny thing. I was actually sleeping fewer hours altogether than I am back home, but I was sleeping on my own timetable. And it makes me rethink. Next time I really need to catch up on some sleep, maybe I won't feel so guilty about taking a day off, right? Anyway, what was the one thing that made you want to quiet quit your job? Please leave a comment. This is the Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum.